You're listening to The Journey with Ellie and Erin. Join us every week as we talk about all the things woo, wise and wonderful with our guests and have the bigger, braver, bolder conversations that women should be having so that we can be the change the world needs.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to you, Ellie, and welcome back to the listener. It's nice to have you back with us. If you haven't been here before, welcome. My name is Erin. Her name is Ellie.
I'm Ellie. Woohoo!
Yeah. And this is The Journey with Ellie and Erin, who are conveniently us. So welcome back. This week, man, it's been a bit of a week, hasn't it?
Yes, we're recording this on the Friday, I don't even know the date. Oh no, Thursday 27th, and the full moon for Scorpio was 2 days ago. And OMG, those big emotions, those big, deep, dark things coming to the surface. Oh yeah, we've had a bit of that.
Yes, there is some sting in that there Scorpio tail this week for sure. Yeah, we haven't experienced it quite so much, I would say, in our household, but just sheer exhaustion in our household at the moment. It's the week 2 of the school term here in New Zealand, and my children have had an all-day sports day, their first evening basketball session, and their first futsal session, which is indoor soccer after school as well. And they've also had sports happening.
Wow, it does feel like it's been crazy. We're much the same, and I think we had a bank holiday, or not that we call them bank holidays over here. It's Labor Day or something random like that, and it was just really interesting how, having gone from a long week to then a short week, just how crazy. Why do we try and fit as much stuff into a short week as we would into a full week? It's just nuts. Yesterday, I was literally in meetings from 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. with, a couple of odd sort of breaks here and there, but it just felt ridiculous. And I wish I'd had the hindsight, or, perhaps just next time, to try and think that when it's a short week, just manage your diary a little bit better, because it doesn't do anyone any favors to be completely exhausted, just sort of halfway through the week. So yeah, it's been a bit like that, but I'm starting to get on real countdown mode, because it is only a month till my parents arrive from the UK. So it's finally they booked their flights in March, and I went to do a date chart for how long it was going to be back then. And it was 200 plus days. So we counted it in months. And actually now we can start counting it in days, which feels really exciting. And I know that my girls are really excited about it. And yeah, I just can't wait to, give my mum a big hug. That'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah. It's funny that you say short weeks, that we try and fit so much into short weeks, because I actually don't think that your schedule was much different to what it would look like in a long week. I think your schedule is always jam-packed full of, all of the things that you do. And but it's interesting, isn't it? Because the reflection there is around the fact that actually, at a new moon, we are still in that sort of restful period, and that space where it's nice to just kind of allow things to happen. It's a very feminine sort of an energy. And I think the challenge is, how do you honor that while life is happening alongside you? And it's one of those things that we live and learn as we go. And that's such a great point that you make there about that whole cyclic living. And we talk a lot about this in the work that we do and with the clients that we work with. It's all about learning to honor that time. But you're right, we have to do it whilst fitting in with a whole life that is not set up to honor that in any way, shape or form. So It's kind of like a double whammy. It's like, right, I know I need to do it, but then how do I do it in the current system? It is definitely square box into a round thing. I was like, what a round thing's called again? A square peg in a round hole.
That's the one. I knew there was an actual saying.
There is an actual saying. And I think it's really interesting to me. We talk about it a lot, and I think we've even recorded podcasts about it, about the fact that we do, we are cyclic beings as humans, and yet here we are, we spend 5 days a week in one routine, honoring one process, and then we have 2 days off where we often throw the routine completely out the window and try and create something else. And then we go back into the 5-day routine, and it never really occurs to people that actually all we're doing is fighting ourselves all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's challenging for sure, but those short weeks always feel long, and they're always brutal. So I'm kind of glad that from here till Christmas here in New Zealand, at least, we have a pretty free run.
Oh no, we've got one in a couple of weeks because it's Canterbury anniversary weekend. So we have a Friday off in like 2 weeks. I mean, seriously, I mean, I don't understand these individual like counties or regions having their own special day off. I mean, it completely throws the whole system out the window. But yeah, so we've got that on the 11th of November. So yay.
Oh, great. So, okay, I'll just note that down as a day that Ellie's not doing any work. Good.
Yeah, do that.
But speaking of new moons and lacking the visibility of being able to see a new moon, that kind of offers a really nice segue into the guest that we have this week, because the woman that we spoke to, Rachel Lewis, she is the founder of She Owns It. She is a New Zealander, but she has lived around the world at various times. But her mission in life and business is visibility for women, and allowing women to own it, to own their amazingness and all of the things. And, you know, it's just interesting for me that we're having this conversation about the new moon, and you know, obviously you can't see the moon at the new moon period. It's a dark sky. And often I think as women, we sit in that space of being the dark sky. And so, yeah, it's a perfect segue. Well, I think we'll
Beautifully done.
Jump on in to their interview, which was really interesting. And if you're anything like me, you'll spend a lot of time just going, as you're listening to Ellie and Rachel talk. But it was a really great conversation, and she's, you know, doing phenomenal things in the world that we love to support. So here we go.
So today we are lucky enough to be interviewing the fabulous Rachel Lewis, and I'm going to start off by reading her bio, because I think that will just give a little bit of background, and then we're going to dive into a deliciously fruitful conversation about all of the things that she's been doing in life and how we can learn from that. So Rachel is the founder of She Owns It, which is one of Aotearoa's largest business communities. Rachel's passionate about helping women grow in confidence, create their own version of success in life and business. In 2016, she launched the She Owns It membership, building a 6-figure systemized business in just over 12 months. And in 2019-2020, She Owns It travelled New Zealand in partnership with Facebook, hosting free social media workshops for women in business. Rachel has a young family and shares openly about the daily struggles and the privilege of the journey. And first up, my first question's got to be, how are school holidays going? Because I know you have one at school, which means you've definitely got one at home at the moment. How's that been going for you, Rachel?
I've got 3 at home at the moment. Yeah, I think the funny thing that I was saying yesterday inside the membership actually was just how because my eldest is 8 years old now, how it keeps being a surprise every time school holidays comes around. Like, you'd think after 8 years you'd be across it, but no, it's like every time a scramble. And I guess I am just lucky that the way that I've set this business up, certainly my first business would not have been the same, but the way I've set this business up, it allows me to just kind of let it go and not focus on business too much when the kids are on school holidays, so I can spend that time with them.
Nice. And tell us a little bit about your background. I know that we've chatted before, and I know you spent quite a bit of time in the UK. What was your past business, and tell us a little bit about that and how it sort of impacted where you are today, I guess.
Yeah, so I started my first business when I was 22 with my bestie, and we were over in London looking to work as nannies, and we knew that we kind of wanted to start a business together, and it was really just because it was the natural thing for us to do, to start we'd work for a babysitting agency, and we thought, oh, maybe we could give that a go. So we did. And of course, when you press go on something like that, you realise I think somewhere sort of 12 to 18 months afterwards that you've now dedicated enough time to it that you're kind of committed and you have to make it work, and maybe it's a bit bigger than you thought it was going to be, bigger of a commitment. And, you know, it's something that once you press go, you kind of need to either step into or make a quick decision to cancel, really. And, you know, it was a big thing. There was no internet around at that time. Marketing was expensive, print marketing. It was very hard to get your name out there. And we were very young in a place we had no community, no support, no business network or mentors or anything like that, just doing it on our own. And so it took a long time for that business to grow, but, you know, it did grow through word of mouth, and eventually it was a, you know, really successful business. And then I moved back to New Zealand 10 years later, and it was at that stage where I still part owned that company, and we were doing IVF, trying to have our first baby. So I didn't want to get a job. In fact, the reality is I didn't want to get a job anyway. So they were my reasons, but, you know, I just knew
Nice.
I didn't want a job. So then I thought, well, what can I do that will give me something, a new fresh start to make the most of coming back to New Zealand? And I thought maybe I could step up and offer some support to other women in business and just share that journey with them and see where that takes me.
Awesome. I love the fact that you were happy to just set up a business in a city that you didn't particularly know, doing something with it. I mean, it blows my mind, the confidence to go forward in doing that. Do you always think you were meant to be an entrepreneur? Was that always your plan?
Do you know, this is an interesting thing, I guess, because part of it was driven by fear. Like, a lot of our friends were getting jobs. I knew I didn't want to work in a bar somewhere. I knew I didn't want to keep working as a nanny because I love nannying, but I knew it wasn't for me career-wise forever. And I didn't want to get a corporate job. I just did not like the idea of going into a corporate environment. And as a young 22-year-old, trying to, I don't know, I just didn't like the feeling of it. So I just wanted to avoid it at all costs. And I thought, well, if I don't want to be a nanny forever, this is an opportunity to do something. All of our friends were working in bars as nannies in low paying kind of, you know, reception, start out corporate roles anyway. So in our view, we weren't really risking very much because no one had any money anyway. So it's a little bit different when you're sort of older and leaving a corporate, high paid corporate job to start your own thing, because you're kind of walking away from quite a lot. We just really felt like, what have we got to lose at that stage?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think for me, when you were saying that, what came up was like, but what about all the potential, right? Like you're almost either way, you're putting all of your eggs into one basket and saying, actually, that's where I'm going to put my energy. And there's, you know, outside of that, there's all this potential. But I think when you, like, society tells you that when you've already realized your potential in some way, shape or form, that's a much riskier move. And I just think it's really interesting that we come from that place of, well, we've got nothing to lose. And I came from the same place when I was starting up my business. The first time I was like, well, I've got nothing to lose here because we're already in a somewhat miserable position of having to have both of us working with children around. And so, you know, what the hell? Why not give it a crack? And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I'll go get a job. And it's just interesting that our default is that we think we have so much to lose when we're in a corporate position, and we think we've got nothing to lose when we're not. But actually, in some respects, it's almost exactly the same. Like, if we don't go into business and give it a try, we do have everything to lose, because what if that is everything?
Yeah. And then I often talk as well about how you do it and then you're like, oh my God, we've done it. And then you just dig your head in the sand because then you don't know, you don't know what's next. And then I think that's where that fear is a shame. you know, and that's what I kind of reflect back on, and think everyone was telling us, like our friends and people who we spoke to, and I used to hate telling people what we did, because I was kind of embarrassed, and I thought they'd look at us as being so young, not really knowing what we were doing, not professional, all that kind of thing. And I used to think other people didn't really look at us like that. You know, that was my way that I was viewing it. And if I could have stepped past that fear earlier and really just stepped into, like, I'd done this incredible thing, but then I was too scared to really step into it and go, right, now what do we need and how are we going to get it? And also there were no's. There were challenges from other people normally that made us go, well, we will try and do it all on our own then. You know, we'll prove that we can do it because we know we're capable, we know we're smart, we know we are, you know, willing to put the time in to make it work. But we were scared to ask for help, I guess. So that was where I think that kind of fear led us down the wrong path a little bit, because if we'd have really embraced the opportunity that we created for ourselves, then we would have gone, now I need to wrap myself in a warm blanket of everything I need to make it work fast and for me in a way that fits for me. But that's where we stumbled, I think, was pressing go and then feeling like we couldn't really move forward with confidence because of all the things.
So when you talk about not being visible, like not showing yourself within that original business, is that just in terms of showing it to, you know, you talk about not necessarily feeling like proud of what you'd achieved. Is that how it was? Like, was it just in terms of meeting other people, or just in the business in general, you didn't like to be the face of it? How did that change with your current business? What was the mind shift in being okay with being visible?
I think for me, a lot of it was financially driven. Like, I had set goals for myself financially, and in my head, I wasn't a success until I met them, right. You know, and they were relatively, like, in hindsight, and I think a lot of people do this, relatively aggressive goals, you know, 6-figure salaries and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And then I never felt like I was credible if I wasn't there yet. Not thinking that there's a heck of a lot of owners out there who not only aren't paying themselves at all, but they're considered very successful founders. They're actually getting funding from people. They are, you know, remortgaging houses, investing a heap of money, not paying themselves, and really establishing growth for themselves. I never looked at myself like that. We were bootstrapping it. We were really putting a lot of time in over investing money. And because I wasn't paying myself, I thought that it wasn't credible yet. So then I didn't like talking about the business. I didn't want to go and get PR. When we did try, we didn't really know how to create a story about ourselves. And so it was across all areas really that I didn't feel like I wanted to put my face to the business. And the one thing though that I think I did really was feeling passionate about was that when we started that business, we were taking a lot of Kiwi and Australian nannies over to London and helping them get jobs there. So we're passionate about the community side of it, supporting the nannies, helping the families support the nannies, because obviously the better the relationship between the family and the nanny is, the more likely the nanny's going to stay. So one of the fears about people taking on a nanny from overseas was that they were going to leave to go home for some reason. So, you know, if they're happy there, it's less likely to happen. So, and also we'd had that experience of moving to London, working as nannies and knowing what it was like feeling isolated without much support from the agencies we were getting jobs through. So community building was always a side of it. And I always talked about your imagine that. So like in the beginning of the business, we had all these, imagine if we did this. Imagine if we did that. Wouldn't this be cool? And now when I talk about those with our community, I say just always, even if you're not going to implement those right now, hang on to them, because they're often really powerful community building marketing strategies that you can bring in that excite other people and really elevate your business over other people's, just because it's cool, fun stuff, right? And that makes a business stand out. So we always had those, and I think that's why word of mouth worked so well for that business in the end. But I just knew also, I guess it was a timing thing, because when I made the move to come back to New Zealand, sort of 2012, the internet was just starting to ramp up with things like, I think I took my first course on creating an online course at around that time, and really saw the potential in the space. And coming back to New Zealand, I thought, you know, if I've been able to do what we did in London, then surely business in New Zealand has got to be easier than that. Like, you know, surely this is an opportunity and a chance for me to say, you know, I've done something, and I'm not Elon Musk or you know, that I'm not that, but I have created a successful business for myself as a woman, and I've been able to exit out of it, and that's a pretty cool thing. So maybe if I take advantage of it and also look at this online space and think about how I could create something pretty cool from it, then if I'm prepared to put my face on it, then maybe I could make it work. And I guess I didn't want to come back home and make the same mistake of digging my head in the sand and not putting myself forward and not making myself visible and not trying to create impact for my business with that. And I was seeing everybody abroad that was having impact with their online business stuff. There was always a face to a name, always a face to a name. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you find that something across business now when you're working with up and coming business women, that's still a challenge that they face? That it's almost that imposter syndrome, isn't it? Like you said, if you're not making the six figures from your own business, if you're not doing these certain external measures of success, which are basically set by society rather than the individual, if we're not meeting those, then it does feel like that perhaps the credibility isn't there, or we're not achieving what we set out to. And how do you help people step over that hurdle and be okay with showing their face and being the face of their business when it perhaps hasn't met their expectations as yet?
Yeah, I have a saying that I share with our community a lot, which is, it's not the size of your business that matters, it's the size of your dream. And, you know, with She Owns It, when I started, I immediately was thinking of a bigger impact, of a wider community, of you know, more people involved, and ways that I could create a low cost product that would have impact for a lot of people. But I always was only thinking about the one person as well. So, for example, when I started the free Facebook group, you know, I really always just spoke in there as if I was speaking to one person with the same problems that I had. And, you know, are you the same? You know, am I the only one that still feels this? Or how can I have been in business for 10 years and still feel like I'm starting fresh every single day? And, you know, this is crazy. And just having those discussions and being real and relatable about business from someone who's been there really makes people who are not there yet understand that it's not all that, having a successful business. And you know, even the next people up above me, I went to a 2-day business weekend the other day, and there were some very successful New Zealand founders there who get a lot of media coverage and are very well known in the country, and they talked about success and how hard it is mentally, and so I kind of step away from feeling like we all need to be these millionaires and that's what business success is. To me, that is not what it is at all. I still think the idea of a 6-figure salary would be amazing, and it is amazing when you can get that through a systemated, automated business. And personally, in my experience, and I certainly don't speak for all, I feel like we need those people who are the front runners, who are out there doing crazy big business dreams, and women trying to get the funding and change those barriers. And we need to support those women and lift them up and surround them with the support that they need to make that stuff happen, without shooting them down or making them feel like that they should be guilty for not focusing on their families or whatever. Like, for the number of actual women that we've got out there doing that stuff, we need to get behind those people. Equally, we need to lift up at-home mums who are making the choice to be at-home mums, and we need to lift up those women in between who might be like you or me, who have got kids in a family, who are trying to juggle having a business. But I see this sweet spot of like businesses turning over, between sort of 200 to 600K a year, and paying a 6-figure salary through online automated businesses. And yes, you can grow from there, and yes, you can level up from there if you want to. But if you don't, you can work 15 to 20 hours a week in a lifestyle business. And to me, I feel like that's a real success. It gives you time to get back to your community, to give to your family and friends. It's not stressful, and it does feel like a balanced life. But I think the key to all of it is what we touched on before, is actually knowing what you want and owning it. And that's part of what She Owns It is giving people permission to say, actually, this is what I want. This is what I really want. Because I think a lot of people have a secret ambition that they're not even really scared to say, prepared to say, but this is what I really want, and this is what I'm prepared to do to make that happen. And that dream could be anything. And it could be, actually, I do want to be an at-home mum. Or it could be, actually, I do want to try and create a global tech company. But just whatever it is, step into it, and step into it fast. Don't do the head in the sand space, and get the support that you need to try and figure out, like to get past all the brain fog that tells you that you can't have what you want, because you can have what you want as long as you know what it is.
Yeah, and I think you make such a great point there with the not knowing what you want, because actually how many women, when you say, well, what do you want in life, don't even know where to start. Like, they genuinely don't even. And what we've been finding with the people that we work with, it's sort of, you get to that like late 30s, early 40s sort of thing, and it's kind of like, well, I've done the career, I've got the partner, I've got the kids, I've done all the things I've been told should make me happy, and yet I don't feel happy. I feel like there's something missing. I feel like there's more. But is it okay to want more? Is it all right to want more? And what is the more that I want? And there's all this sort of this sense of wanting there to be more in life, but not really knowing what it is. So they don't even know how to go after it. Do you find that? I mean, you're probably dealing with women once they've worked it out a little bit more, but is that something that resonates with you? That sort of that getting to this stage in life of just being like, but surely there's got to be more than this.
Oh, totally. And I think you go through different versions of that as well as you get older. Personally, for me in my 20s, I look back and I think I didn't know what I wanted. Like, it was probably the most miserable time in terms of my mental health of my life. Like, I was very confused, even though I was doing great things. But it's easy to sort of see that in hindsight. At the time, I thought of myself differently. And then, like you say, very focused on kids and family in our 30s, and then in my 40s as well.
Great in the 40s.
But sort of getting to the point where it's like constantly questioning, is this right or not? And I think with a lot of women who've started businesses, they start it often because it's a passion, because it's a hobby, because they like doing it and they want to see if they can make something work. They want something for themselves. And then, like I said earlier, they find it's a bigger commitment than they thought. And then you're constantly questioning, is this right? It's taking me away from my family. It's taking me away from other commitments. So is this right for me? And so where I always come back to with that is, and I've had a big shift with She Owns It with this, because obviously we had such rapid growth in the beginning, and then COVID hit. I had my third baby. And so Timmy and Rosie are now 4, and they've just turned 4 and 2 in July. So they're still very young. So right through COVID, I had 2 small toddlers trying to manage She Owns It. I really dialed it down because I just couldn't. Something had to crack, and it was work. And so I really dialed it down. And then coming out the other side of that, it's like, well, is it still right for me? And the question that I keep coming back to is, am I asking myself that because it's not where I want it to be right now? Or am I asking it because it's no longer my dream? And
interesting.
And so what I keep coming back to is, if I woke up tomorrow and it was humming and automated back to where it was, like really close to right before all of that happened, then would I be happy? And would I be living a life that, you know, I really felt like I was in my power and doing, had all those compartments in my life of family and friends and relationships and spirituality and impact that I love, and having a day-to-day experience of connecting with people more, which I really want, would I be happy? And I'm like, yes, yes. But there's work to do to get there, and so yeah, I'm constantly conscious of the fact that for me, my easy space is hiding behind my desk, not asking for help, not investing in things that I think could take things further, because I know I can do most of the things myself, and you know, but it just takes a little bit more time. So yeah, I think I have to constantly work on myself like that and think, right, kids are a little bit older, I want to be connecting more with people on the daily, and a great way to do that is to grow my team and to sort of look back to the bigger picture and start to create the life for me and the impact again that I want to create through the business and have wanted to create the whole time. So I think, yeah, personally for me, and I think it's different for everyone, but personally for me, it's just knowing that ultimately the dream is still the same. I do love the work. And, you know, the other thing I see happening a lot is people feeling like they're never doing enough. We've got incredible members who are doing incredible things in the environmental space, in the community building spaces, mental health, literally every important thing going on in the world right now. People with social enterprises, charities, businesses that are serving to create impact in those spaces, but everyone feeling like they're not doing enough for all the different parts. And I think that's a lot of overwhelm, because as humans, I just don't think that we're created to be able to save the world. Like, one person can't save the world. So that's interesting, because we need to have more dialogue around it's okay to be visible about this one thing. Like, you can stand for that one thing, and it doesn't mean that you don't also care about the environment, or you don't also care about inclusion, you know, because your business is this. So I'm actually seeing that making people hold back, and I actually did hold back a little bit as well when you've got these global things going on. And like, am I choosing the right thing? Is this the right space that I want to have impact in? And for me, I think the blessing of She Owns It is that just with She Owns It being successful, allows for those spaces to be more successful and supporting those spaces to be more successful. So I'm sort of vicariously having impact that way as well, which is really important to me.
Nice. I have a question about, you mentioned quite some time ago, to be fair, so apologies. Right. You mentioned, mentorship and having the ability to kind of connect with people who have done the thing and who are doing the thing and who can speak with authenticity about the journey, and you know, they're open and honest about the challenges and the barriers that you're going to face, and that sort of stuff. And like, I think there's two ways that impacts us. The first is that, you know, if we go all in with fearlessness into that mentorship relationship, we can find really fruitful guidance around where we're going and what we're doing and how we need to get there. But for some of us, those types of relationships also bring up a genuine sense of imposter syndrome, and a real feeling of, I couldn't possibly do that. And so it can also make us kind of almost turn away from where we were going. And I wondered if you had any thoughts on your own journey around where those paths, kind of where that crossroads comes, and how you lean into the more uncomfortable choice. Because I feel like you've probably done that several times, where you've leaned into the discomfort of going, actually, I don't know if I fully belong at this table, but I want a seat at it anyway.
Yeah. Yes, that just totally resonates with me, and I don't know why there's not more dialogue about it. And I did wonder, and I have wondered, if it's only me that feels like this. But, you know, I always had this thing with, like, super successful women in business where they just made me feel even worse about myself. Like, that, you know, and like I said before, we've got to support them. We've got to back them, and we've got to, you know, that's a hard life. That is a hard road to pave. And so I did not want to take from them what they have done, but I was like, there's a disconnect between us hearing inspirational stories about 7-figure business owners and the newbies starting out being like totally deflated because they feel like they're never going to get there. And where I've come to with it, and it's kind of like with She Owns It, when we have speakers and, you know, people coming in to share their skills within the membership, I have held back on bringing in those types of people because I feel like just no matter how relatable they are when you talk to them, they're always going to leave us with that feeling of kind of like, well, I'm never going to be that person anyway. So it's not for me. So then I was like, well, how can this, there's a disconnect between what we're getting and what we need. And that's where I kind of started looking at it like a ladder almost, where, you know, we're on the first rung of the ladder. As in, if you're a new business owner on the first rung of the ladder, it's too big a jump to go all the way up here. And it's overwhelming and it makes you feel less than, even though it's also inspiring. So, you know, it can be more than one thing at once, right? And then, so it's like, okay, well, maybe if we just created a space where you're getting people who are here and here and here, and they're all similar values, they're all going to make me feel the same. Like, I get that we're all in the same bucket and kind of coming into it from different lived experiences, but experiencing the same challenges as we go along. So I feel like these are, you know, normal people, but I can actually learn from someone who's just, you know, their success is that they run a successful challenge, and that resonates with me. Like, it's not a 7-figure business. The broader aspect, it's the mini bites that kind of can from people just above people that actually can be quite impactful sometimes. So I think that's where I kind of, in my mind, visualize She Owns It as being a part of that ladder of kind of, you've got someone like Company of Women where they've got a lot of the, you know, top business owners in the country that you can connect with and meet with and get mentorship from in that space. And then She Owns It is kind of a lower rung on the ladder in terms of starting out with that networking and connection. And although we deal, like, for example, they definitely would take in newbies at Company of Women, I think, but the vibe is possibly a little bit different just because of the type of people. So then it's kind of like warming yourself up to having discussions with people who are above you on the ladder, realizing actually they're not that much different to me anyway. And then, sometimes just being brave and thinking, okay, yep, this opportunity has presented itself to me. Am I going to do it? Yes, I am one of those people that I'm constantly doing things and my friends will tell you that, it's one of those things, and what's something that your friends will say about you. I always get myself into situations. I'm one of those people where, like, my friends are cracking up at me and they're like, what is she doing now? And it's just because, like, I say no to a lot of stuff, and then I'll say yes to something, and then I'll be like, oh no, why am I saying yes to it? But it'll be those things that push me forward. And I guess that's what it was like with the Facebook partnership, for example, when I not long had Timmy, and I found myself being flown over to Sydney to announce that partnership. I was still breastfeeding. I had to get off the plane and, express in the bathrooms right before I went into their live studio. When I came out from the live studio, when I was having the interview, I was literally worried that I was leaking at the interview. Like, it was kind of like fly in, fly out, no baby with me type thing. Just laughing at myself going, what am I like? Like, this is just crazy. But also, one of the most game-changing things that I've done. So I've learned, and the really big pivotal moment for me when I did that was talking about visibility and being prepared to put yourself there even though you're not there yet, was when I came back to New Zealand, started the Facebook group and put my face on the top of the banner. Like, that was, just Canva, and a graphic on a Facebook group. But it was a really internally pivotal moment for me where I was like, this is me saying no to how I've been in the past and knowing that didn't serve me, and inviting something else in instead and just seeing what happens. and it was personal and people like it. Yeah. Yeah.
In terms of your personal growth and how that sort of run alongside the business, because a lot of people when they're in business will focus on getting the business coaching, getting the business mentoring. How important do you think it is to have that personal support, that sort of that space to be able to explore who you are as a person and how that shows up in your business? Because when we do have our own businesses, it's basically us, whatever it is we're selling, we're still the key part of it. And one of the challenges that I think we see in a lot of people is that there's a lot of focus on getting the business support, but it's actually, if they haven't done the work on, working on how to manage their people-pleasing tendencies, for example, or their ability to be able to understand what their triggers are, or when does that wounded behavior show up, or when is it really scary? Is it scary for a real reason or just a story that you've made up? Like, how much of that is interlinked and how much of it needs to be done separately? Or what are your thoughts on that personal growth stuff?
I think if you're not growing personally, your business won't grow. That's, you've at every stage of your business journey, and I heard this somewhere else, this is not a quote from me, I can't remember where I heard it, but like, at every stage of your business journey, your business will require growth from you. And in order for your business to grow, you will need to grow too. And I remember reading that at the time and thinking, not quite understanding what it meant. But I feel like I understand it more now, especially coming out of the last few years of unexpected babies and COVID and lockdowns and, unusually fast growth in a business, met by kind of really quick kind of putting the handbrake on it. And then motherhood and confusion and the brain fog and all of that coming out the other side of it. And I felt confused. And I thought, I do need something. I need something to try and figure this out for myself. Like, why am I holding back? I feel like I've got nothing to share anymore. And I feel like I've told my message, get visible, get visible, build a community. Community building is a great way to grow your business. I've shared it so many times before. Now I'm a mum and I've got kids and I've got a busy life, and somebody else has probably got a better message to share. I felt like I didn't have this valid voice anymore. And that came hand in hand with how I was feeling personally and emotionally. And I remember I was listening to a podcast. went to the mount to go for a walk around the mount. I had all my exercise kit on, and on the way there, I was driving and I was thinking to myself, I'll probably get there, park the car, get my phone, go and sit in a cafe and just scroll on social media for half an hour instead of going for a walk. And then on the podcast I was listening to, it kind of completely talked me out of it. And then because it was talking about your thoughts and how impactful they are, and how you don't have to accept the first thought that comes into your head, and that thought's often not right and often comes from a place of fear and protection for yourself. And to really grow, you need to override it. And so I thought, no, I'm gonna get out of the car. I'm gonna go for my walk. And as I was walking along, I was walking up behind some groups of people, and the thought that popped into my head was, oh, I won't go around them. And then I thought to myself, well, why won't I go around them and go past them? Is it because I don't want them to look at the back of me? Am I so scared to take up space in the world that I don't want a complete stranger to look at my bum while I'm walking in front of them? And so then I was like, well, no, I'm going to run. And I'm going to run for as long as I feel like running and for as long as it makes me feel good. And I literally hadn't been for a run in like 6 years. And then I ran the whole way around the mount, got back to the car. I was so happy with myself, and I'd done the whole thing completely for myself. And I thought, I have not been operating from a place of knowing what I want for myself and setting boundaries for myself. It was a really impactful moment for me of thinking, of realizing how much my actions were guided by what the people around me were thinking of me, even when they were complete strangers and I didn't know them. And that sort of led me to think about my business and my work and where I was with it, and how I'd stopped feeling like I had the right to be visible in my business anymore, when, again, I've created this amazing thing. Like, I've been on this journey, and now I've had all these kids, and now is the moment where getting visible is important for me. Like, this is the story, because this is the time when we feel like hiding and shaming ourselves for and guilting ourselves. And so if I can find ways to get that growth, get that support, get that mentoring and help that I need to step into my power right now and run in front of those people, when I and be happy while I'm not only do it, but actually feel like completely free and uplifted and energized by it, then that's a super, super powerful thing to connect into. And it all comes from personal growth, and and then it reflects on your business and how you show up. And that's exactly what's happened with me. And whenever I think about it, I think about coming up to behind those people on the pathway, going around the mount, wondering if I should pass them or not, and thinking, hell yeah, of course I should. I can take up space now, tomorrow, next year, in 40 years, like, I plan to. And, however I want that space to be, it's just owning what you want, coming back to that again, like knowing what you want and stepping into it.
Yeah, I think that taking up space, Erin, I'm sure you've got some questions about that side of things, or some thought-provoking comments, because I know that you've been listening and taking it all in.
Yeah, I mean, taking up space is deeply uncomfortable for people who have been told to be small and quiet their entire lives. And I think when you find the courage to give yourself permission to do that, I think the biggest challenge is not placing any limits on yourself while you're doing it. It's a big leap to go from, I couldn't possibly take up any space, and who am I to own this little corner of the world, and who am I to be seen, and all of that stuff. It's a big step forward to then say, actually, I'm just gonna do me. I'm just gonna be right here. I'm just gonna be me. I'm gonna do my thing and see how the world responds, and not really care about the result of that. And I think the thing for me that I see in that is that the fearlessness that comes along with that isn't driven by any one part of our lives. It seems like we build tiny little pieces of evidence for ourselves that that's possible. in various aspects, whether it's our parenting, our partnerships, our friendships, our work, whatever it is we do in the world, we're creating little pieces of evidence all the time that actually it's possible for us to own that space. And so the fact that you had that pivotal moment where you gave yourself permission, and, you know, I don't know if you were completely fear-free, but you were fearless about it. That is something that I think as women, we need to share more of that, because that's evidence for others that it's possible for them too. And we're not particularly good at that. We're not particularly good at standing up and saying, actually, I was shitting myself, but I did it anyway. Right? Like, I was in that space and I genuinely didn't know if I could do it, but I did it. And it wasn't perfect. And it wasn't always fun. And sometimes it felt really fucking hard and I just wanted to crawl into a corner and hide. But I did it anyway. And if I can do that, you can do your thing. And when you doubt that, I'll remind you that it's possible. I think that, and that's where community comes to the fore. And so what you're doing, I love the fact that you're doing that in the context of business. We're probably trying to do a similar thing, I think, in the context of life. And I think the biggest challenge that any woman has at the moment is not actually in finding that permission or finding that community or finding that confidence, but almost finding that desire within herself and being able to identify it in a full enough form that she can go after it. I think we are really good at having little nudges of intuition around what we want, but we shut them down really quickly. And it takes an awful lot to allow that to grow and not put limits on it. And so if you have any sort of moment, I guess, in your life where you can reflect back and go, actually, that's the moment where I chose to let it grow rather than shutting it down, I'd love to hear about it.
I think I've had multiple of those moments because, like I said, it's been constant questioning for some time over whether it's the right path for myself. Because I'm also a creative, you know, and I love weaving, and I've got this vision of myself in this beautiful, like, converted garage with my weaving and some art, and I'm just selling stuff online, and you know, and then I think, oh, I could probably still do that, right? It doesn't have to be. I sort of see, you know, life, like you say, we shut things down, and I think we could just open up to more. And what if I could still have She Owns It and have my weaving space? And then I was like, oh, you know, that's a business. That could be a business. And that could be part of my She Owns It journey. And that could also give people permission to be multi-passionate entrepreneurs and be okay with that too. So, yes, I have regular questioning about, and like, you know, shiny object syndrome about the offers and whether I should release a new offer, and it's a work and it's a practice, and I think it's you're either someone who is dedicated to lifelong growth and interested in it and fascinated with it and kind of bringing that into your path as a business owner, or you're not kind of thinking about that stuff. And so I think often the business space attracts those type of people, right, who are just lifelong learners and like absorb stuff and learn it and then want to tell everyone about it because it's like this new aha moment for them. And so, yeah, I seek those aha moments and kind of and try and practice a few things like creating before I consume, and instead of, you know, sitting back and watching Netflix at night, reading a book that I think will inspire me, although it's got to generally be a pretty easy read. So, you know, but just there's really small things that I find that I do when I want to make a change for myself, but it takes a long time. And to be honest, I feel like I've got weaknesses in the business area that I want to work on and want to practice working on. And I know it comes from self, and I think it reflects on the way that I look after myself as well, in terms of the exercise and showing up. And, so there's definitely, to me, I feel like it's a big path forward to get to, I don't know, like, it's funny, isn't it? Because I go through days where I feel completely at peace with the person that I am right now and where I am. And day to day, I'm happy if I can put my feet on the grass and hug my kids. And those are the important things in life. And then other days I'm like, I know I'm not living to my potential yet. And it's pretty fun to try and figure out where I need to push myself next and what I can learn about and grow from in order to get there. And yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to relationships for me, and community, and knowing that it is a practice. It isn't, I just don't see an overnight change. Like, you try heaps of things. You try journaling, you try gratitude, you try positive affirmations, you try thought work, you try, and it all just builds up a skill base in your head that might one day lead you to making a better decision in that one day. And the next day it might not. But don't give yourself a hard time, because that's just life.
Yeah. Well, that's why we call it the journey, right? And, I think that resonates with both of us as well. As, some days you're all ready to take the next step, and the next day you're like, oh, should I go back a couple? That's part of the joy of wanting more and of being prepared to explore what that looks like, I think. So, I hear you. Just before we wrap up, we do normally ask 4 questions at the end of an episode, just random questions. So I'm going to launch into those in a moment, but I've forgotten what the 4th one is because it wasn't my question originally. It was Ellie's. So, Ellie, I'm planting the seed. You need to ask the 4th question.
I've remembered it. It's in here.
Perfect.
Somewhere.
Perfect. So the first question is, what book have you read that you wish you had written?
Well, this is probably quite a big one because I've only just read it. I've actually only part read it because it is a massive book, but I've just been started to read A to Z of the Heart by Brené Brown, and it's amazing. And yeah, I mean, if you'd written that, you'd be Brené Brown, and that'd be pretty cool.
You are speaking my language.
She is Ellie's girl crush in a big way, so totally get it. So that might help us answer the next question then, which is, if you can invite 3 people, dead or alive, to dinner, and Ellie will invite herself if you invite Brené Brown.
I invite myself anyway. What do you mean?
That is also true. So if you can invite 3 people to dinner, who would they be?
Okay, I would go definitely Brené Brown. Oprah would be quite fun.
Oh, yeah.
And the 3rd person, oh gosh, there's so many. Probably someone young, actually, because someone young but totally inspirational who's doing something really cool. Maybe who's the young environmentalist girl?
Greta Thunberg.
Greta, yeah, she's awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I love that.
That would be a push yourself dinner.
Yeah, that would be a lean back and listen dinner on my part. I'm just gonna soak all this in. The next question is, if your 90-year-old self was sitting in front of you right now, what would you want her to say to you?
Go easy on yourself. You've done well.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
So the 4th question, which I totally remember, is what is your guilty pleasure?
That's it.
I have a lot.
Okay,
Maybe that's your guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
My guilty pleasure is I have lots of guilty pleasures.
Yeah, no, oh gosh, eating chocolate with a book by the fire, you know.
I mean, there's
sounds
nothing
like
to feel
heaven.
guilty about there, yeah.
Yeah. And a glass of wine, actually, nice red wine.
yeah.
Would go with that quite nicely. Yeah, I mean, I don't even feel that guilty about that, though. Probably what I feel guilty about, it would be more like just eating the chocolate, actually. I do love it. So yeah, that's where I think that 80-year-old picture of myself telling myself not to be too hard on myself is quite good. It's like, if you want to eat the chocolate, just eat the chocolate.
Yeah, you've earned it.
So much truth in that.
Perfect.
Oh, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. It's been such a joy chatting and hearing about your story and so many pearls of wisdom. I can't wait to listen back to it and make lots of notes. And we'll be sharing all your details in the notes in the podcast, if you're listening to it from a podcast, and on the radio show as well. So thank you so much. Real pleasure to meet you and to chat at length with you, and all the very best with She Owns It.